What if everything you thought you knew about Tony Stark was a lie? What if the genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist we've all come to love in the Marvel Cinematic Universe wasn't Tony Stark at all, but Victor Von Doom, the iconic villain Dr. Doom? Sounds insane, right? But stick with me because this theory is about to blow your mind. Did you ever notice how Tony's arrogance, his unmatched intellect, and his obsession with control mirror the traits of Dr. Doom? Could it be that the MCU has been hiding a massive secret about Iron Man's true identity? And what if Robert Downey Jr.'s own fascination with playing Dr. Doom holds the key to unraveling this mystery? By the end of this video, you'll question everything you thought you knew about the MCU. And we'll reveal how a hidden timeline might have saved Tony Stark from becoming the villain he was destined to be. Are you ready to dive into the wildest Marvel theory you've ever heard? Let's get started. Okay, let's break this down. The idea that Tony Stark was never truly Tony Stark, but instead Victor Von Doom might sound like a stretch, but hear me out. Tony Stark, as we know him, is the heart of the MCU. He's the guy who kicked off the entire franchise in Iron Man back in 2008. But what if the character we've been watching for over a decade isn't who we think he is? What if, deep down, Tony Stark has been a cover for Dr. Doom, one of Marvel's most complex and dangerous villains? To understand this, we need to look at the similarities between Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom. Both are brilliant inventors with egos the size of a planet. Both have a knack for building world-changing technology, Tony with his Iron Man suits, Doom with his insane gadgets and armor. Both have a complicated relationship with power, always teetering on the edge of hero and villain. Think about it. Tony created Ultron, a catastrophic mistake that nearly destroyed the world. Doesn't that sound like something Dr. Doom would do? Have you ever wondered why Tony's decisions sometimes feel so villainous? This theory suggests that Tony Stark's persona in the MCU is a mask, literally and figuratively. What if the Tony Stark we know is a construct, a carefully crafted identity to hide the fact that he's actually Victor Von Doom? Maybe his playboy lifestyle, his sarcastic wit, and his public persona are all part of a grand deception. But why would Marvel do this? And how does it tie into Robert Downey Jr. himself? Let's dig deeper. Here's where things get juicy. Did you know that Robert Downey Jr. actually wanted to play Dr. Doom before he became Tony Stark? Back when Marvel was casting for the Fantastic Four films in the early 2000s, RDJ reportedly auditioned for the role of Victor Von Doom. He was fascinated by the character's complexity, Doom's mix of genius, arrogance, and tragedy. Doesn't that sound like the perfect fit for RDJ's acting style? Now think about this. What if Marvel, knowing RDJ's interest in Doom, decided to plant a subtle seed in the MCU? What if they cast him as Tony Stark but wove in elements of Dr. Doom's personality, knowing that RDJ could pull off that duality? After all, RDJ's portrayal of Tony is so iconic that it's hard to imagine anyone else in the role. But what if that casting choice was deliberate? Not just for Tony Stark, but to set up a long-game twist where Tony's true identity as Doom would eventually be revealed. This isn't just speculation. RDJ himself has spoken about his admiration for Dr. Doom in interviews, saying he found the character fascinating and layered. Could his performance as Tony Stark be a subtle nod to Doom's personality? Have you ever noticed how Tony's darker moments, like his obsession with controlling the future in Avengers Age of Ultron, feel like they could come straight out of Doom's playbook? Let's explore how the MCU might have been setting this up from the start. Alright, let's look at the evidence in the MCU itself. If Tony Stark is secretly Dr. Doom, there have to be clues, right? And trust me, there are plenty of moments that make you go, that's suspicious. Let's start with Tony's personality. He's not your typical hero. He's selfish, arrogant, and often makes decisions that put him at odds with everyone else. In Captain America: Civil War, Tony's push for the Sokovia Accords shows his need for control, even if it means betraying his friends. Doesn't that scream Dr. Doom, a character who believes he's the only one capable of saving the world, even if it means ruling it? Then there's Tony's technology. His Iron Man suits are basically a high-tech version of Dr. Doom's armor. Both characters rely on their inventions to assert dominance, and both have a flair for the dramatic. Remember Tony's grand entrances in his suits, like at the Stark Expo in Iron Man 2? That's the kind of theatricality you'd expect from Doom, who's known for his larger-than-life presence. But here's the kicker. Tony's arc in the MCU often feels like a battle against his own darker impulses. In Iron Man 3, he's haunted by his failures and insecurities. In Avengers Infinity War, he's obsessed with stopping Thanos, almost to the point of self-destruction. Could these moments be hints that Tony is fighting an inner Victor Von Doom, a part of himself he's trying to suppress? What if the hero we see is just a facade and the real Tony, aka Doom, is always lurking beneath the surface? Let's not forget the multiverse. The MCU loves playing with alternate realities, and Avengers Endgame introduced the idea of branching timelines. What if the Tony Stark we know exists in a timeline where he was prevented from becoming Dr. Doom? Maybe in another reality, Tony fully embraces his Doom persona, complete with the green cloak and metal mask. Could the MCU be building toward a reveal where we see this alternate version of Tony? Let's talk about how the directors might have left room for this twist. Here's where the theory gets even crazier. The Russo brothers, who directed Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, have admitted they didn't have a clear plan for the Secret Wars storyline in the MCU. Secret Wars is a massive Marvel Comics event where Dr. Doom plays a central role, often as a godlike figure who reshapes reality itself. If the Russos were unsure about how to handle Secret Wars, could they have been planting seeds for a Tony Stark Dr. Doom twist without even realizing it? Think about it. The MCU's Secret Wars could be the perfect stage to reveal that Tony Stark was always meant to become Dr. Doom. In the comics, Doom is a master manipulator who bends entire universes to his will. What if Tony's journey in the MCU was leading him toward that same destiny, but something or someone intervened to change his path? The Russos' open-ended approach to Secret Wars leaves the door wide open for this kind of mind-blowing reveal. Have you ever wondered why the MCU hasn't fully introduced Dr. Doom yet? Sure, we've had versions of him in the Fantastic Four movies, but none of them felt definitive. Maybe that's because Marvel was saving Doom for something bigger. A twist where RDJ returns as a villainous version of Tony Stark. Could Secret Wars be the moment where we finally see Tony embrace his true identity as Victor Von Doom? Let's explore how the multiverse and timelines tie this all together. Now, let's get to the heart of this theory. The idea that the MCU created a new timeline to prevent Tony Stark from becoming Dr. Doom. In Avengers Endgame, we learn that changing the past doesn't alter the present. It creates a new timeline. What if the entire MCU we've been watching is a timeline where Tony's fate was altered to keep him from turning into Doom? Picture this. In the original timeline, Tony Stark follows a darker path. His arrogance, his need for control, and his genius lead him to become Victor Von Doom, a villain who believes he's humanity's only hope. But someone, maybe the Time Variance Authority, maybe a future version of Tony himself, realizes this and intervenes. They create a new timeline where Tony becomes Iron Man, a hero who sacrifices himself to save the universe. This would explain why Tony's story feels so tragic. He's constantly fighting his own nature, trying to be better than his worst impulses. In Endgame, Tony's death is the ultimate act of redemption, but what if it's also the final step in ensuring he never becomes Doom? By sacrificing himself, Tony locks in the timeline where he's a hero, not a villain. But here's the big question. What happens when the multiverse comes into play? In Doctor Strange, in the Multiverse of Madness in Spider-Man No Way Home, we see how different versions of characters can exist across realities. What if Secret Wars introduces a variant of Tony Stark who did become Doctor Doom? Imagine RDJ stepping back onto the screen, not as Iron Man, but as a cold, calculating Doom, complete with the iconic mask. Wouldn't that be the ultimate MCU twist? Let's tie it all together. This theory hinges on three key ideas. First, Tony Stark and Doctor Doom share so many traits: genius, arrogance, a love for power, that it's easy to imagine them as two sides of the same coin. Second, Robert Downey Jr.'s interest in playing Doom suggests he might have been channeling some of that character into his portrayal of Tony. And third, the MCU's love for timeline shenanigans and the open-ended Secret Wars storyline make this twist not just possible, but plausible. Think about the moments in the MCU that feel off. Tony's creation of Ultron. His near obsession with protecting Earth at all costs. His willingness to fracture the Avengers over the Sokovia Accords. These aren't just character flaws, they're glimpses of a Victor Von Doom trying to break free. The MCU might have been dropping breadcrumbs all along, leading us to a reveal that Tony was never meant to be a hero. But the real genius of this theory is the timeline twist. By creating a reality where Tony becomes Iron Man and sacrifices himself, the MCU ensures that Doctor Doom never rises. It's a story of redemption, but also a story of fate being rewritten. And with Secret Wars on the horizon, we might finally see the version of Tony Stark who embraces his Doom destiny. So, where does this leave us? If this theory is true, it changes everything we know about the MCU. Tony Stark, the man who started it all, might have been hiding a dark secret, one that could reshape the entire franchise. With Secret Wars coming up and RDJ's rumored return to the MCU in some capacity, the stage is set for a reveal that could redefine Marvel's cinematic universe. What do you think? Is Tony Stark secretly Victor Von Doom, or is this just a wild theory? Have you spotted any other clues in the MCU that support this idea? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe and ring the bell for more crazy Marvel theories. Until next time, keep questioning everything, because in the MCU, nothing is ever what it seems.